The silence that follows is absolute. Complete. Like the moment before a coffin lid closes. 20 men in tailored black suits stand motionless around the green felt tables, their hands frozen on stacks of cash, their eyes locked on the same fixed point, the teenage boy gasping for air, his lungs finally opening, his chest heaving like a drowning victim pulled from dark water. The olive lies on the poker table, small and insignificant, surrounded by hundreds of thousands of dollars in bundled cash. Rowan Bennett's arms are still locked around Noah Romano's torso from behind, her wet delivery jacket soaked through from the December rain outside, her scooter helmet dangling useless from her other hand. She is breathing as hard as the boy, her heart hammering against her ribs like something trying to escape a cage. Her hands shake. Everything shakes. The boy turns around, his face still flushed purple-red, tears streaming down his 16-year-old cheeks, and says the only words that matter in this moment. I can breathe. Oh my God, I can breathe. Then the room comes alive again. Not with noise. With something far more dangerous. With movement. With intent. With the sound of fabric sliding against leather as men adjust their positions, as hands move beneath jackets, as the machinery of violence begins its ancient rotation. Nico Romano rises from his chair with the deliberate slowness of a man who knows that every gesture carries weight. He is tall, broad-shouldered, somewhere in his late 40s, with dark hair silvered at the temples and a scar running from his left eye down toward his cheekbone like a map of every war he has ever fought. His suit is black, expensive beyond calculation, tailored to move with his body like a second skin. The white shirt beneath is open at the collar, showing the hard line of his chest and a small gold crucifix catching the dim light from the overhead lamps. He wears a gold watch on his left wrist, Rolex, the kind that costs more than Rowan's entire year of rent used to cost, back when she could afford rent. His dark eyes lock onto hers. They are not angry. This is somehow worse than anger. They are calculating. Who sent you? His voice is deep and solid like an oath. Like bedrock. Like a command that expects obedience the way gravity expects objects to fall. Did someone send you into that room? Did someone tell you to do that? Rowan's mouth opens. Nothing comes out. She shakes her head instead, the helmet slipping down her arm. I don't know what you mean. I was just making a delivery. I heard choking and You touched my son. Nico takes one step closer. His men tense like springs being wound too tight. You put your hand on my son without my permission, without knowing who he was, without knowing anything except that he needed help. Do you understand what that makes you? Rowan understands nothing. Her mind is a blank page on fire. She is calculating the distance to the door. She is calculating whether she can run faster than a bullet. She is calculating the probability that she will die tonight in an underground poker room while the man with the scar leans over her body and says something in Italian that she will not live long enough to understand. It makes you dangerous, Nico says quietly. The words land like stones dropped into still water. It makes you the kind of person who acts without thinking about consequence. The kind of person who touches things that don't belong to them. The kind of person who saves lives without asking permission. He looks at his son. Noah is still gasping, his hand at his throat, his young face brilliant with the shock of continued existence. You saved him. Nico looks back at Rowan, and for just a moment, for the briefest flicker of a second, something moves across his face that is not calculation. Something that might be gratitude or might be grief or might be something with no name in English. You saved my son when you did not know who he was. When you did not know who I was. When you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Silence fills the room like water. Carlo, the taller of his two lieutenants, tall and thick-shouldered with a scar tissue ridge running along his jaw, steps forward. Boss, we should. Shut up. Nico does not look at Carlo. His eyes do not leave Rowan's face. Everyone. Out. Boss, Nino, the second lieutenant, younger and sharp-eyed, begins to protest. Everyone except Carlo and Nino. Tell them to wait outside. 2 minutes. The men move. They move the way men move when they are trained to follow orders without questioning them, the way armies move, the way death moves. Within 30 seconds the poker room is empty except for Nico, his 2 lieutenants, Noah and Rowan Bennett, a girl with $5 in her pocket and absolutely no idea that her life has just been divided into before and after, into the person she was 30 seconds ago and the person she is about to become. Nico studies her. His dark eyes move across her face like he is memorizing something. Like he is reading something written in a language only he understands. What is your name? Rowan. Her voice comes out barely a whisper, a sound like wind through empty buildings. Rowan Bennett. Rowan. He says her name slowly, like he is testing it, like he is deciding whether it fits. How long have you worked for the delivery service, Rowan Bennett? For months. Since the apartment. The words are tumbling out now, one after another, like she cannot stop them. Like a dam has broken and now the flood is everything. We lost everything in the fire and my sister, she said I could stay with her and the kids, but I need money and this job, it pays minimum wage plus tips if you're lucky but most of the time the tips don't come and I've been working double shifts and… Stop. He raises one hand. It is not a gesture of violence. It is a gesture of mercy. You are explaining yourself to me. You think I am angry. You think you have done something wrong. Did I? Did I do something wrong? Nico looks at his son. Noah is standing now, his color slowly returning to normal, his breathing steady. The boy's eyes are moving between his father and the delivery girl like he is watching a scene in a movie he does not understand. No, Nico says quietly. You did something extraordinary. What she does not know, standing in that underground room surrounded by the trappings of violence and power, is that this single act of courage has placed her at the center of a convergence she cannot yet see. She does not know that in 5 days, she will need $300,000 to save her custody hearing. She does not know that her manager, Preston Mercer, has been stealing her tips for months while threatening to fire her if she says anything. She does not know that Margaret Harrington, a society woman with a taste for cruelty and unlimited resources, has been gathering ammunition to destroy Rowan's claim to her 2 children. And she does not know that Nico Romano, the most dangerous man in Miami, the man who built an empire on vengeance after watching a rival shoot his own father when he was just a boy, has never forgotten a debt in his entire life. He looks at Carlo. Give her the emergency payment. $5,000. Cash. Carlo blinks. In 15 years of working for Nico Romano, Carlo has never heard him offer money to a stranger. Boss? $5,000. For the delivery. For saving my son's life. For the inconvenience of being the only person in this room with actual courage. Rowan's legs almost buckle. $5,000. That number is so large in her mind that it has ceased to feel like a number. It feels like a hallucination. It feels like one of those dreams you wake from gasping, unsure whether you actually experience something real. I can't take that, she says. You will take it. His voice is still the same depth, the same weight, but now there is something else underneath it. Something almost gentle. Almost like a father speaking to a daughter. Almost like a man who has been broken so many times by the world that he has forgotten how to be anything except dangerous, until this moment, until this girl in a wet delivery jacket reminded him. You will take it because I am offering it. Because my son is alive because of you. Because your life changed tonight and you should be rewarded for the part of you that chooses to save people instead of walking past them. He removes a card from his suit jacket. It is thick, expensive cardstock, embossed with gold lettering. No name. Just a number. If you need anything, Rowan Bennett, you call this number. You say my name. You say Nico Romano sent you. And every door in Miami will open for you. She takes the card. Her hands are shaking so badly she almost drops it. Thank you, she whispers. Do not thank me. He turns back toward the poker tables. Thank yourself. Your courage just changed everything. Before we continue, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming tomorrow. Now let us go back to the beginning, to understand how a girl with $5 in her pocket and 2 children sleeping in borrowed beds across the city ended up walking into the lair of the most powerful man in Miami on a clear winter night when the stars were frozen in the sky and the city below was about to change forever. 7 hours earlier, the rain was still falling. It fell in heavy sheets across the flooded streets of Miami, drumming against the windows of a cramped one-bedroom apartment where Rowan sat on the edge of a borrowed mattress, counting coins into small piles on the nightstand. $5.43. That is all that separated her from absolute zero. Her wet jacket hung over the back of a plastic chair, still dripping water onto the thin carpet. Her scooter was parked outside in the rain, its engine cooling down after 8 hours of deliveries that had netted her exactly $18 in tips. $18 from people who ordered $30 meals and could not find the compassion to reward the person who brought them hot food in December weather. Rowan is 27 years old but looks 35. Her blonde hair, once thick and glossy, is now thin from stress, pulled back in a bun that shows the sharp line of her skull. Her eyes are blue, but the blue is faded now, bleached by sleeplessness and worry, ringed with the dark circles of someone who has not slept more than 4 hours at a time in 3 weeks. Her hands are calloused from the scooter handlebars, her nails broken and dirty despite washing them 3 times an hour at the restaurant where she also waitresses during the day shift. She is wearing a thermal undershirt because the borrowed apartment has no heat that works properly. The cold seeps in through every window and door like the building itself is breathing ice. From the living room, she can hear her 2 children sleeping on an air mattress that deflates slowly throughout the night. Mara is 5 years old, and Ethan is 3. They fell asleep an hour ago after she read them a story using the voice she used to use, the voice from before everything burned, before their father left, before the world became this thin and sharp and impossibly difficult. The apartment belongs to her sister, Jessica, who works night shift as a nurse. The living room couch where Jessica tries to sleep during the day is covered in a blanket held down by books and cushions to trap whatever warmth exists. The kitchen has been stripped of everything except the bare minimum: 1 pot, 2 plates, a single knife. The bathroom has 1 towel and a bottle of shampoo that Rowan refills with water to make it last longer. On her phone screen is the number that is destroying her life. $300,000. That is what the custody hearing will cost if she loses. $300,000 to fight her ex-husband's lawyer, to hire her own lawyer, to pay for a home study that proves she can provide adequate housing for her children. $300,000 that might as well be $3 billion, that might as well be printed on the moon and guarded by dragons. She has 7 days to come up with the money. Actually 6 days now. Actually 5 days and 18 hours if you want to be exact. A sound from the living room pulls her attention away from the coins. Mara is crying in her sleep, the small whimpering sound of a child having nightmares. Rowan gets up immediately, careful not to wake Ethan, and walks into the living room where her daughter is twisted in blankets, her small face contorted with fear. Rowan sits on the edge of the air mattress and smooths the hair back from Mara's forehead. The gesture seems to calm her. The crying stops. The tension leaves her tiny shoulders. But Mara's eyes flutter open anyway, aware on some level that her mother is there. "Mama." Her voice is small. Smaller than it should be for a 5-year-old. The fire took something from Mara that cannot be replaced. "I am here, baby. Go back to sleep. Are you sleeping too?" The question lands like a knife in her heart. Yes, Rowan lies. I am sleeping right here with you. But what Mara does not know is that her mother will be awake all night, working on her phone, calculating numbers that will not add up, making spreadsheets on a cheap Android that keeps freezing because it does not have enough memory. Rowan will spend the hours between midnight and 4 in the morning researching emergency loans and second mortgages and anything else that might close the gap between $5 and $300,000. She will come up empty every single time. The delivery service texted at 4:19 in the morning with the night shift offer, double pay for emergency deliveries to the downtown high-rises between now and dawn. She accepted before the second message finished sending. By 6 p.m., when she arrived at the restaurant for her evening shift, she had already worked 12 hours. But the money. She needs the money more than she needs sleep. Preston Mercer, the restaurant manager, is 48 years old and built like a man who has spent his life collecting power in small increments: power over the wait staff, power over the scheduling, power over the tips that are supposed to go to the servers but which seem to disappear before the shift ends. He has thin blonde hair that he combs straight back from a wide forehead, and his eyes are small and sharp like a hawk's. He wears cologne that smells like rotting fruit, and he stands too close to the waitresses when he talks to them. He is standing too close to Rowan now. "You look exhausted," he says, his voice dripping with false concern. "Maybe you should go home early. Take care of yourself." What he means is, you look vulnerable enough that I can suggest something inappropriate and you will not report it because you are too tired to fight back. "I am fine." Rowan moves sideways, putting distance between them. "I will work the full shift." "You sure?" "Because I could schedule you out and give your tables to Brittany." "I said I am fine." He smiles, and it is the smile of a man who knows that the girl in front of him has 2 children sleeping in a borrowed bed and $5 in her pocket. It is the smile of a predator who has identified prey. "Let me know if you change your mind," he says, and walks away. By the end of her shift, 3 customers have stiffed her on tips, 1 has left a penny with a note that says "for a smile," and Preston has walked past her table 4 times, once with his hand brushing the small of her back, which she knows he will deny if she mentions it, which means she will not mention it because reporting it will give him an excuse to fire her. She cannot lose this job. She cannot. At 9 p.m., when she clocks out, her total tips for the night are $8.31. Added to the 18 from yesterday, that brings her to $26.31 total across 2 days of work. The emergency delivery call comes through at 9:44 p.m. It is a restaurant downtown, high-end sushi place that does not usually deliver but will for orders over $200. The address is for 47 Biscayne Avenue, basement level. The customer name is just initials, NR. The payment for delivery is guaranteed at $50, plus whatever tip the customer decides to give. Rowan accepts the order without hesitation. She does not know where she is going. She does not know that Biscayne Avenue basement level is where the most powerful criminal organization in South Florida conducts business. She does not know that NR stands for Nico Romano, or that she is about to walk into a room where 16-year-old Noah Romano will choke on an olive while his father watches, unable to save him, until a delivery girl in a wet jacket makes a choice that will bind their lives together in ways neither of them can yet predict. She only knows that she needs money. The rain is still falling when she arrives at the address, heavier now, colder, the kind of rain that feels like the city is weeping. Her scooter's headlight cuts through the darkness as she navigates to the basement entrance, an unmarked door with no signage, just a small camera pointed downward. She takes a breath and knocks. The rain hammers down on Miami streets like bullets striking metal, each drop exploding against the pavement in tiny coronas of spray. Rowan Bennett leans into the wind on her scooter, water streaming down her face, her delivery jacket soaked through to the cotton shirt beneath. It is 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and she has been working since 6 in the morning. Her legs ache. Her hands are raw from washing dishes during the lunch shift. But she cannot stop. She will not stop. Not while her children are sleeping in borrowed beds 2 miles away. The scooter's engine coughs as she accelerates toward the next delivery address, a luxury condominium on Brickell Avenue where a resident ordered Thai food for $42 and will likely hand her a $1 bill with a smile that means nothing. Rowan has learned to read those smiles. They all look the same. Pity mixed with indifference. The expression of someone watching a drowning person from shore, close enough to see the struggle but too far away to feel responsible. She checks her phone at a red light, water dripping from her wrist onto the cracked screen. The notification banner reads, "Custody hearing in 5 days." Below that, her banking app displays a number that feels less like money and more like evidence of failure. $247. Against a rebuilding estimate of $300,000. The mathematical gap is a chasm that swallows her every waking thought. It swallows her sleep too. 1 week ago, the apartment building on Flagler Street caught fire at 2 in the morning. Rowan was working a double shift at Harborside Grill when her sister Rebecca called, her voice fractured with panic. The building is burning. Emma and Lucas are safe, they are safe, but Rowan, everything is gone. Everything is burning. She had left work with her manager Preston Mercer still watching from behind the host stand, that predatory gaze she had learned to ignore the way you learn to ignore a persistent ache in your chest. Rebecca picked her up 10 minutes later, and they drove to Flagler Street where the sky glowed orange and firefighters in yellow suits moved through smoke like ghosts walking through fog. Rowan stood in her pajamas at 3 in the morning, watching the building collapse in on itself, flames eating through the walls like the structure was made of paper. 2 floors below where her apartment had been, people emerged from windows with nothing, their faces blank with shock. She felt nothing. She was numb. She was ice. She was a perfectly programmed machine that stood and watched because standing and watching was all she could do. One thing survived. A single child's drawing, recovered from the hallway outside her apartment door, the edges blackened and curled from heat but the image still visible. Crayon stick figures holding hands. A house with a yellow sun. The words "Our Family" written in Emma's uneven letters across the top. She had pressed that drawing to her chest and walked back to the car, and she had not let it go since. Now, 1 week later, everything is measured in the currency of desperation. She counts money the way other people count days. She counts losses instead of gains. She counts down to a custody hearing in 5 days where a family services judge will decide whether a mother who just lost her home is fit to keep her children, or whether those children would be better off with her ex-husband David in his house with his new wife who smells like perfume and cruelty. The judge does not care about the fire. The judge does not care that Rowan has worked 14-hour days since the building burned. The judge cares about one thing: does she have a home to offer them? Does she have stability? Does she have proof that she is not a failure masquerading as a mother? She does not have any of those things. She has $247 and a burn drawing and a scooter that coughs when the engine turns over. The delivery to the Brickell condominium takes 8 minutes. The resident, a man in expensive pajamas, his chest hair visible beneath an open designer shirt, answers the door and hands her $1. She thanks him anyway. She thanks everyone anyway. Politeness is free and might keep her employed. The next delivery is pizza to a frat house near Florida International University. The students are loud, drunk, singing something about spring break. One of them asks if she wants to come inside and party. Another one laughs at her wet hair. She delivers the pizza, collects a $2 tip from the least drunk one, and leaves. By midnight, she has completed 6 deliveries and collected $18 in tips. She has earned the base wage for her deliveries of approximately $11 total, since delivery pay in Miami hovers at $1.50 per trip for independent contractors. So she has $29 for 6 hours of work. It is not enough. It will never be enough. She returns to Harborside Grill for the closing shift, arriving at 11:19 p.m., changing into her waitress uniform in the employee bathroom. The uniform is black with a white apron, and it hangs loose on her frame because she has lost weight. Not intentionally. She has simply stopped eating much. Food costs money. Money is for rent she does not have and a home she cannot rebuild. Harborside Grill sits on the waterfront with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the dark Atlantic. On a clear night, you can see the boats passing. Tonight, there is no clarity. The rain obscures everything. The windows are sheets of grey, and the ocean is invisible, reduced to sound, the crash and retreat of waves against the seawall below, over and over, the rhythm of something being broken and reformed and broken again. Preston Mercer is 42 years old with slicked-back hair that shines under the restaurant lights like polished obsidian. He wears expensive cologne that does not cover the smell of alcohol beneath it. His shirts are always unbuttoned one button too far, and his gold watch catches the light every time he moves. He manages Harborside Grill, which means he has power over who works and who does not work, who gets shifts and who gets cut, who is kept and who is discarded. He is also a thief. Rowan has worked at Harborside for 8 months. She has watched him steal from the tip jar every shift she works. Not all of it. That would be too obvious. But always half. Always. She has seen him pocket cash while customers are still at their tables, his movements casual, practiced, the movement of someone who has done this 10,000 times and will do it 10,000 more times because nobody stops him. At 2 a.m., when the last customer leaves and the kitchen has shut down, Preston counts the tip jar at the back office. It is a ritual. Rowan watches from the doorway. The jar today held approximately $86, not bad for a Tuesday shift. Preston's thick fingers pull out bills, sorting them into piles. He slides one stack toward Rowan. $43. She feels the moment she chooses silence. She feels it like a blade moving through her chest. "That is my rent money," she says quietly. Her voice does not sound like her own voice. It sounds like something fractured, like something that might break if handled roughly. Preston looks up. His eyes are very dark, and they contain something that is not quite anger. It is worse than anger. It is amusement. The expression of someone who knows exactly what he is doing and knows that there is nothing she can do about it. He sets down the cash. He steps around the desk. He is tall, 6'2", and he uses that height like a weapon, positioning himself close enough that she has to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "You want to keep this job?" His breath smells like whiskey and restaurant kitchen grease. "You shut up and smile. You report me to corporate, I will make sure every restaurant in Miami knows you are a thief. I have friends everywhere. You understand me?" She understands him. She nods. She takes the $43 and leaves. At 3 a.m., she rides her scooter to her sister Rebecca's house on the west side of the city. The night is clear now, the rain having stopped an hour ago, the clouds having broken apart to reveal a winter sky where the stars are sharp and cutting, like diamonds embedded in black velvet. Frost is forming on the parked cars along the residential streets. Her breath comes out in small clouds. She stands outside Rebecca's house for 5 minutes, watching through the window into the living room where her children are sleeping on the pull-out sofa. Emma is on the left side, her 6-year-old body curled into a tight comma shape, her face peaceful in sleep. Lucas is on the right, 5 years old, his thumb in his mouth, the way he sleeps only when he is deeply stressed. They have stress dreams. They wake up crying sometimes. Rebecca says they call for their mother. Rowan cannot go inside smelling like grease and failure. She sits on the front steps instead, even though the cold bites through her wet clothes. She counts the money in her pocket. $43 from tips, divided by the days remaining until the custody hearing. That is approximately $8 a day. The rebuilding estimate for a studio apartment is $300,000. The time remaining is 5 days. The mathematics of this situation are simple and devastating. Her phone buzzes. A notification from the delivery app. Emergency order. Restaurant downtown, basement delivery, $200 minimum food cost, guaranteed $50 delivery fee. Payment upon completion. She needs every dollar. She accepts the order without reading the address carefully. She does not see that it is for 47 Biscayne Avenue, basement level. She does not see that the customer initials are NR. She sees only the guaranteed money and the promise that this night might yield more than $8 of progress toward a future that feels increasingly impossible. She starts her scooter and rides toward downtown, the engine coughing and sputtering, the rain beginning again, softer this time, but colder, the kind of rain that feels like the city itself is weeping. She does not know where she is going. She does not know that Biscayne Avenue basement level is where the most powerful criminal organization in South Florida conducts business. She does not know that the initials NR belong to a man named Nico Romano, and she does not know that his 16-year-old son Noah is about to choke on an olive while 16 men in black suits watch, paralyzed, waiting for death to take the boy they all love, and that in approximately 42 minutes, a delivery girl in a wet jacket will make a choice that will bind their lives together in ways neither of them can yet predict. She only knows that she needs money. The basement entrance appears suddenly, unmarked except for a small camera pointed downward at the door. She takes a breath. She knocks. The basement door swings inward and Rowan descends the concrete stairs, her scooter helmet still dripping rain onto the worn leather jacket that cost $7 at a thrift store 3 years ago. The air shifts from November cold to something thick and warm, the smell of cigars and expensive cologne mixing with the metallic tang of fear that seems to live in the walls of this place. She hears voices, men's voices, layered and low like distant thunder. The poker room opens before her like a mouth-swallowing sound. 14 men sit around a mahogany table that probably costs more than the apartment building where she grew up. The walls are dark wood, the lighting amber and deliberate, the kind of space designed so that nothing inside can be seen from outside and nothing outside can penetrate in. No windows. No escape. Just the smell of whiskey and the soft shuffle of cards and the weight of money that hangs in the air like humidity. She takes 3 steps forward. A young man, maybe 17, sits at the edge of the gathering. His hair is dark like his father's will be dark, his jaw still soft with youth, his suit jacket tailored to an expensive precision. Noah Romano shifts in his chair, reaching for an olive from the dish on the table beside him. He brings it to his mouth. He swallows. And then his face changes. His hand flies to his throat. His mouth opens but no sound emerges. His eyes widen with the specific terror of a person discovering that the mechanism of breathing has stopped working, that the body has become a betrayal, that death is not a future possibility but a present reality happening right now in this basement while 16 men in black suits watch with the paralysis of people who understand that the wrong move means becoming invisible forever. Rowan moves before thought arrives. She crosses the space between the table and the boy in 2 seconds, her training from a CPR class taken 4 years ago at a community center surfacing with sudden clarity. She positions herself behind him, her arms wrapping around his ribcage just below his sternum. His body is rigid with panic, his feet kicking against the expensive leather chair, his eyes still wide and searching for rescue. She presses her fists hard and upward in a motion that violates every instinct screaming at her to run. The olive launches from his mouth onto the mahogany table like a tiny green missile. Noah gasps. His body collapses forward, his lungs pulling air in desperate, stuttering drags. His color returns not as a gradual shift but as a flooding back of life, the pale blue of his skin darkening to pink and then red as oxygen remembers how to travel through his veins. The room remains frozen. 16 men in black suits do not move. 16 pairs of eyes track the delivery girl in the wet jacket as she slowly lowers her arms and steps backward, her own breathing loud in her ears like the sound of an animal caught in a trap. A man sits at the head of the table. He has not moved, has not spoken, has done nothing but watch with eyes the color of a winter storm. His face is a study in angles, sharp cheekbones, and a jaw that looks carved from something harder than bone. He wears a shirt of white linen that costs more than her monthly rent used to cost, open at the collar to show the dark hair of his chest. A scar runs from his left eye to his cheekbone like a blade that has marked him and changed him and made him permanent. He is Nico Romano. His presence fills the room like cold water filling a room, not through sound but through the absence of sound, through the way every other man becomes smaller when he exists in the same space. His eyes move to her. His eyes hold her like gravity holds objects to the earth. Noah coughs, a wet and desperate sound, his young body still processing the fact that death has retreated, that the breathing has returned, that the olive is on the table and not in his throat anymore. Nico rises from his chair. His movement is slow, deliberate, each motion controlled like a man handling something fragile. He steps toward Rowan. His voice emerges deep and solid like an oath, like something spoken in churches by people making promises they cannot break. You do not apologize for saving my son's life. Rowan's hands tremble. Her voice comes out barely a whisper, shattered like glass at the moment of impact. I am sorry, I just wanted to help, I will leave now. Nico does not move. Behind him stands a man with shoulders as wide as a doorframe and a scar running across his jaw like a permanent argument with violence. This is Carlo, his first lieutenant, the man who has watched 17 years of Nico's life and learned that loyalty means being willing to become a ghost. Nico gestures with 2 fingers. A small motion, nothing more, but Carlo moves immediately and pulls a money clip from his jacket pocket. The clip is thick with hundreds, a stack of currency that probably equals 3 months of Rowan's wages, held together by a silver band. No. Rowan shakes her head violently. The word comes out firm, the first firm thing she has said in this basement. I do not want payment. I just did what anyone would do. Nico's eyes narrow. Something flickers there, a recognition of another person, a moment of understanding that travels between them like electricity through water. Anyone would have stood frozen, he says quietly. You moved. That is rare. He studies her with the precision of a man who has built an empire by understanding people, by reading the small signals that reveal who they truly are beneath the masks they wear. He sees the worn jacket, the helmet she still holds, the delivery bag on the floor with Harborside Grill printed on the side in fading letters. He sees her hands, calloused from years of work that does not pay enough. He sees her eyes, which have the particular exhaustion of a person carrying weight too heavy for one person to carry alone. What is your name? He says. Rowan Bennett. She meets his eyes for exactly 3 seconds. In that time, something passes between them, something that has nothing to do with words and everything to do with the knowledge that they are both people who have learned how to survive by moving forward even when movement seems impossible. The moment breaks like ice under pressure. You may go, Rowan Bennett, Nico says. But I do not forget debts. Rowan grabs her delivery bag from the floor. She turns and walks back toward the stairs, her legs moving on instinct, her heart hammering against her ribs like a creature trying to escape. She climbs the concrete steps. She emerges into the cold November night where the rain has stopped and the air feels clean and simple after the weight of that basement. She sits on her scooter for 2 minutes without starting the engine, just breathing, her body shaking not from cold but from the realization that she just touched a world where one wrong word means disappearing into the Miami harbor with weights attached to your ankles, where one mistake means your family receives a phone call informing them that you have simply stopped existing. She rides to the original customer's address, a condominium on the bay, and knocks on a glass door. A man in a bathrobe opens it, takes one look at the food, and shakes his head. This is cold. Completely cold. I am not paying for cold food. He closes the door without waiting for response. $30 lost. Not paid. Simply gone. At her sister Rebecca's house at 4 in the morning, Rowan sits on the couch counting the bills in her wallet. $5. That is all. 5 single-dollar bills and 67 cents in coins, the total of 17 hours of work at minimum wage with tips that barely qualified as acknowledgement of her existence. She does not cry. Her tears finished themselves somewhere around midnight 3 years ago on the drive home from the hospital after the fire, after the apartment building became nothing but smoke and memory, after the landlord's insurance company sent a letter explaining that faulty wiring was pre-existing negligence and therefore not covered, which meant she was liable, which meant she owed money she did not have for an apartment she no longer possessed. Through the living room window, she watches Emma and Luca sleeping under blankets borrowed from her sister, their small bodies curled like question marks asking the universe why their mother cannot provide them with a home anymore. She pulls the drawing from her jacket pocket, the one item saved from the fire, the only thing that made it out intact. A child's sketch in crayon, the family holding hands, Emma with red hair, Lucas with yellow, herself in the middle, all of them smiling with the uncomplicated joy of people who do not yet understand how quickly everything can burn. Custody hearing in 4 days. $300,000 needed. $5 in her possession. The mathematics is simple and devastating. Across the city, in a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Miami's glittering sprawl, Nico Romano does not sleep. He sits in a leather chair facing the ocean and makes a phone call. His voice is quiet, which means the person on the other end of the line listens with the intensity of someone hearing a death sentence pronounced. I want everything on Rowan Bennett. Everything. Her history, her family, her debts, her fears, the names of everyone who has ever hurt her. I want to know what it would take to fix her life completely. Find me that number. The line goes silent except for the sound of typing, of someone moving through databases and records and the digital footprints that every person leaves behind them whether they know it or not. Carlo appears in the doorway of the office, his frame filling the space like a shadow gaining dimension. The boy is fine, he says. The doctor checked him twice. His airway is clear. He is sleeping. Nico nods once. He does not say anything. He simply returns his gaze to the ocean and to the city lights reflecting off the dark water like fallen stars. In 15 years, Carlo says slowly, I have never seen you move like that for anyone outside the family. Nico's jaw tightens. She is family now. She saved my son. There is more to it than that, Carlo says. Nico does not respond. But Carlo knows him well enough to understand that the silence is an answer in itself, that something fundamental shifted in the basement this evening, something that cannot be explained through the simple language of debt and obligation. Something that recognizes another broken person and decides to help them stand. The next morning, Rowan takes her position at Harborside Grill as the sun climbs above the marina, turning the water into liquid light. The restaurant overlooks white yachts bobbing in crystalline blue, a view designed for people with money enough to notice beauty without it causing them pain. She ties her apron and reminds herself to smile, to move quickly, to be invisible enough that customers forget her name 5 seconds after meeting her. The lunch rush arrives like a flood. Businessmen snap fingers for refills. Tourists demand modifications to everything. She runs between tables with feet screaming in worn sneakers and a voice trained to stay pleasant even when her entire world is collapsing. At table 12, a woman in her 50s settles into a chair as if she owns it. Her name is Margaret Harrington, though Rowan does not know this yet. She wears a cream Chanel suit tailored to perfection and pearls that probably cost more than Rowan's education. Her silver hair is arranged in a perfect bob, her blue eyes cold with the specific coldness of someone who has never had to struggle for anything. Margaret studies Rowan with the precision of someone examining an insect under glass. You look exhausted, dear, Margaret says. Rowan's face arranges itself into a smile. Long night, Margaret turns to her 3 friends with a smile that contains no warmth whatsoever. These delivery people work such odd hours. I wonder if they are really just delivering food. The table laughs. The sound is sharp and cutting, designed to wound. Rowan's face burns but she says nothing. She takes their order and walks toward the kitchen, her back straight, her eyes forward, her shame folded so carefully that no one can see it unless they know exactly where to look. After the lunch rush ends, Preston Mercer corners her in the supply closet. He stands too close, and she smells the bourbon on his breath at 2 in the afternoon, which means he has been drinking since morning, which means his mood is unpredictable and therefore dangerous. I need you to work a double tonight, he says. No overtime pay. Rowan's voice comes out carefully, each word chosen like stepping stones. I cannot. I have to see my kids. Preston's hand moves fast. His fingers wrap around her wrist like a trap closing. His voice drops to something quiet and lethal. You will work or you are fired. And if you are fired, I will call child services personally and tell them you are unstable. A mother who cannot even keep herself employed, living off her sister's charity, unable to provide a home. You think a judge will let you keep those kids? Rowan jerks her arm away, her voice shaking. You cannot do that. Watch me, Preston says. His smile is cruelty made flesh. I know about your custody hearing. Margaret Harrington is on the family court advisory board. We play tennis together. One word from me and your sister keeps those children forever. Rowan's world tilts. The room spins. The breath in her chest becomes something impossible to pull in. She looks at Preston's face and sees that he means every word, that he would burn her entire life down for no reason other than the pleasure of watching her burn. I will work the double shift, she whispers. Good girl, Preston says, and walks away. That evening at 9 o'clock, Rowan takes her break in the alley behind the restaurant. She sits on a milk crate and counts her tips from lunch service. $67. Combined with the $5 already in her pocket, that brings her total to $72. The numbers are a death sentence. $300,000. $72. For days remaining. A black Mercedes pulls into the alley without sound. Nico Romano steps out alone, though Rowan knows he is never truly alone, that somewhere in the darkness surrounding this moment, there are men watching, waiting, ready to move if she makes any sound that could be interpreted as a threat. Rowan stands. Her pulse spikes upward with the specific fear of prey recognizing predator. "I want to speak with you," Nico says. His voice is quiet. In another man, quiet would mean vulnerable. In him, it means dangerous. "About what?" Rowan says. "My son is alive because of you. I pay my debts. What do you need?" Rowan's pride flares upward like a match struck in darkness. "I do not need anything from you." Nico steps closer, and she understands for the first time the full weight of his presence, the way he commands space simply by existing in it. "You need $300,000 in 4 days or you lose your children," he says. "I know everything that matters." Rowan's breath catches. "How do you know that?" His eyes hold hers with the precision of a blade finding a target in darkness. When he speaks, his voice carries the weight of something he has carried for a long time, something heavy and sharp and impossible to put down. "I lost my father when I was 17, he says. "A rival named Vincent Calabrese shot him in front of me. I hid in a closet and did nothing because I was too afraid to move. I built everything I have on the promise that I would never be powerless again, never watch someone I love die while I stand still. Your children will not be taken from you. Not while I can stop it." Rowan's eyes fill with tears. "I cannot take your money. I do not want to owe someone like you." "Someone like me," Nico repeats. His expression hardens. "You think I am a monster? I think you are dangerous." He nods once. "I am. But not to you. Never to you." He pulls a business card from his jacket pocket, ivory and embossed with a number in silver. "When you are ready to stop being proud and start being practical, call me. The custody hearing is in 72 hours. Your choice." The Mercedes swallows him and disappears into the Miami night. Rowan stares at the card, trembling. Through the back door of the restaurant, she hears Preston's voice calling her name, demanding she return, his tone already sharp with the promise of punishment if she refuses. What she does not know is that Margaret Harrington has just finished a phone call to her friend on the family court advisory board, planting carefully worded seeds of doubt about Rowan's stability, her fitness as a mother, her capacity to rebuild a life from fire and ash. What she does not know is that those seeds are growing, spreading like roots through the system, preparing the ground for a revelation that will arrive in exactly 48 hours and change everything. The sun hits the burnt-out shell of the apartment building at 10:41 in the morning, casting shadows through the condemned frame like skeletal fingers reaching down from a merciless sky. Rowan Bennett stands in the ashes of what used to be her life, her thin jacket providing nothing against the winter cold cutting through Miami streets, and she holds a melted plastic truck in hands that will not stop shaking. The toy is charred at the edges, the paint bubbling where flames once consumed everything, Lucas's favorite, the one he slept with for 3 years before the fire took it all at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday when the electrical wiring in the walls gave up trying to hold the building together. She pulls her phone from her pocket. The custody evaluation file is still open on the screen, the words burned into her memory like the fire burned everything else. Rebecca Chen offers stable housing, established employment, married status, comprehensive childcare. Rowan Bennett presents as financially unstable, currently homeless, inconsistent income history. Recommendation: custody remain with Ms. Chen pending Ms. Bennett's demonstration of permanent housing and financial security. 24 hours. That is how long she has left before the judge reads those words aloud and her children, her babies, her reason for every breath she takes, become her sister's permanent responsibility instead of temporarily borrowed while she clawed her way back to standing. She thinks of Emma's drawing, the one tucked into her wallet along with her $5. Just $5. In all of Miami, with 12 million people needing water and food and shelter, she owns $5 and a drawing of her family made with colored pencils on the back of a restaurant receipt. Emma had drawn them as stick figures holding hands in front of a house with a yellow sun, and she had written in careful, uneven letters, "Mommy's home." Home. The building behind her is a tomb. The morning started at Harborside Grill before the sun came up. Rowan had arrived for the 6 a.m. shift still wearing yesterday's clothes, having spent the night on a cot at her sister Rebecca's apartment, squeezed between two children who still sometimes called for her in their sleep, not understanding why Mommy was sleeping in a different room now, why her hands shook when she tucked them in, why she sometimes just sat on the edge of their bed and cried silently so they would not hear. The frost had coated the parking lot in silver. Her breath made clouds in the frozen air. She had 5 hours of sleep in the last 40 hours, and her body moved through the morning routine like a machine someone had forgotten to turn off, clocking in, tying her apron, checking the reservation list for the morning shift. And then Margaret Harrington had walked through the doors with 4 of her society friends, women who wore jewelry that cost more than Rowan's annual salary before the fire, women who ordered egg white omelets and complained they were too rich, women who had never counted pennies or chosen between eating and buying diapers. Margaret had sat at table 12. She was 58 years old, though her skin suggested she had paid enough money to make that irrelevant, her hair the color of expensive blonde that required maintenance every 3 weeks, her dress a cream silk that probably had a designer name sewn into the collar. She had ordered mimosas, though it was not yet 7 in the morning. "Did you all hear about that theft at the yacht club last week?" Margaret had said, her voice pitched loud enough to be heard across the entire dining room, loud enough that Rowan heard it from the coffee station where she was filling the carafe for table 4. The police said it was likely an employee. Someone with access. Rowan's hands had gone still. Margaret turned her head, her eyes finding Rowan across the room with the precision of a hunter spotting prey. "You work events at the yacht club sometimes, don't you, dear?" "Doing the serving?" The coffee carafe was heavy. It burned against Rowan's palm as she stood frozen, every muscle in her body suddenly unable to remember how to move. "I have never stolen anything in my life," she heard herself say, and her voice sounded like glass being crushed under a heel, small and breaking and helpless. Margaret's expression shifted into something that looked like concern but tasted like poison when you listened carefully to the words underneath. "Of course not, sweetheart. I would never suggest such a thing. I am just saying it is so important to vet service workers carefully. Especially those with access to our homes. To our children." She paused, let that land like a stone in still water. "One of my friends is on the family court advisory board, you know. We take child safety very seriously." The carafe slipped from Rowan's hands. Coffee exploded across the white tablecloth, spreading like blood across snow. The cup shattered. Margaret gasped, a sound of theatrical distress that somehow made the whole thing worse, made it public, made the other servers turn and stare. "How clumsy," Margaret said, dabbing at the spilled coffee with a napkin like she was brushing away a minor inconvenience. "You must be so overtired. All those late-night deliveries in the dark. It must be exhausting, not having a proper home to rest in." Preston appeared at Rowan's shoulder within seconds, his hand gripping her arm just hard enough to hurt. "My office. Now." The back office of Harborside Grill is a cramped space smelling of cleaning supplies and stale grease, filing cabinets lining one wall, a desk covered in papers and receipts. Preston closed the door behind them with a click that sounded final. "Margaret Harrington just called me," he said, not bothering with preamble or explanation. "She told me I was incompetent for hiring someone like you. Do you understand what that means?" He stepped closer, backing her against the desk. "She controls half the private events in Miami. Weddings, charity galas, corporate functions. She just told all of her friends that I cannot properly vet my employees. She told them you have access to her homes. You cost me $50,000 in catering contracts before you even finished your coffee shift. I did not do anything, Rowan whispered. You exist, Preston said. That is enough. He smiled, and his smile was the worst part because it was genuine. You are fired. Pack your things. I want you gone in 5 minutes. Please, she said. She heard herself beg, heard the desperation crack open her voice. I have a custody hearing tomorrow. I need this job. I need the money. I know, Preston said. He smiled wider. And I am calling my friend at Child Services right now. I will tell her you were terminated for theft. I will tell her you were stealing from customers, stealing from the register. I have her number right here. He pulled out his phone. Unless you want to negotiate. His hand moved to her waist. His fingers pressed into her side where the fabric of her uniform stretched thin. Rowan shoved him hard, harder than she knew she was capable of pushing anything. Preston stumbled backward, his expression flashing with surprise and anger. She ran, not toward the main dining room but through the kitchen, past the line cooks and dishwashers, out through the back door into the winter cold. The parking lot was empty. Her scooter sat where she had parked it, the seat cracked from sun exposure, the engine an old two-stroke that coughed when it started. She kicked it to life and rode without direction, the cold air cutting through her thin jacket, her hands numb on the throttle. She ended up at the burned building at 10:11 in the morning, the melted truck in her hands, the realization crushing through her like floodwater, she had lost. The mathematics was simple and absolute. She had $5. The hearing was in 18 hours. She had no job, no income, no house, nothing. The evaluation was already written. The judge was already decided. Rebecca was stable. Rowan was chaos. She pulled out her phone. Her finger hovered over her sister's contact to tell her to file for permanent custody, to stop pretending this was temporary, to accept that Rowan Bennett could not save herself or her children, that some people were simply too broken to fix. Then she saw it. The business card. Ivory with silver embossing. A single number. She called before she could think, before fear could stop her fingers from moving. The voice answered on the first ring. I have been waiting for your call, Nico Romano said. I need help, Rowan said, and her voice broke on every word. Where are you? She told him. He said, stay there. The line went dead. The black Mercedes arrived 12 minutes later. Nico stepped from the car dressed in a charcoal suit, the fabric fitting his broad shoulders like it had been painted on, his expression carved from stone as he took in the scene, Rowan standing in ashes, tears streaming down her face, a melted toy in her hands, her entire world collapsed into rubble behind her. Carlo and Nino emerged from the second vehicle, their suits identical, their movements synchronized, their eyes scanning the abandoned building with the practiced caution of men who had learned to see danger in shadows. Nico approached her slowly. Who did this to you? He said. She told him everything. Preston stealing tips for 6 years, demanding unpaid overtime, threatening her job, threatening her children. Margaret Harrington spreading lies about theft, using her connections to the Family Court Advisory Board, planting accusations designed to poison the judge's mind before the hearing even started. Nico listened in absolute silence. When she finished, he said quietly, go to your sister's house. Be with your children. The hearing tomorrow will not be a problem. What are you going to do? Rowan asked. What I do best, Nico said. Correct mistakes. That night, as Rowan sat in her sister's apartment watching her children sleep, as she held Emma's drawing and let herself cry into it, as she tried to prepare herself for the moment she would walk into that courtroom and lose everything, Nico Romano moved through Miami like an instrument of precision. At 8:23 p.m., Preston Mercer's apartment door exploded inward. 12 men in federal tactical gear flooded the space. The lead agent, a woman with cold eyes and a badge, said, Preston Mercer, you are under arrest for wage theft, sexual harassment, extortion, and racketeering. Preston's face went white. No, you cannot, I did not. 47 employees, the agent said. 6 years of documentation. $200,000 in stolen wages. Video evidence of threats made this morning. She snapped cuffs onto his wrists as he collapsed to his knees. Someone doesn't forget. Outside, news cameras filmed the arrest. The footage went viral within an hour. By midnight, his face was on every local television station. Every employee he had ever threatened came forward. By dawn, he was trending on social media. Meanwhile, at the Four Seasons, Margaret Harrington's charity brunch, the event she chaired every year, the gathering of Miami's most elite, was scheduled to begin at 10 a.m. She arrived wearing a lavender suit and diamonds, preparing to give her annual speech about charitable giving and community responsibility. 200 society women filled the ballroom. As Margaret took the podium, the screens behind her flickered to life. Not her presentation. Security footage from Harborside Grill. A conversation between Margaret and Preston, their voices crystal clear, "The delivery girl who works for you. I want her destroyed before her custody hearing." "What did she do to you?" "Nothing. I just enjoy watching desperate people break." The ballroom went silent. Margaret spun, watching her own face on the screens, listening to herself laugh as Preston said, "I will call child services." That will break her. Timestamps appeared. Dates. Her attendance at family court advisory meetings where she mentioned Rowan Bennett by name. Women began standing. Walking out. Margaret's phone exploded with texts. Donors withdrawing. Board positions revoked. Country club membership suspended. A reporter approached with a camera. "Mrs. Harrington, did you conspire to deprive a mother of custody for personal entertainment?" Margaret fled through the kitchen, her heels clicking on tile, her entire social empire crumbling in real time as the footage spread across Miami television. The next morning, Rowan walked into family court at 2 p.m. wearing a borrowed suit. Her lawyer whispered, "Something happened. All complaints withdrawn. Margaret Harrington resigned in disgrace. And someone paid $300,000 into an escrow account for your apartment rebuilding." The judge entered. "In light of new evidence, I am granting full custody to Rowan Bennett effective immediately." Emma and Lucas ran into her arms, and she held them like they were the only solid thing in a world that had finally stopped burning. 3 days later, Rowan walked into the lobby of Nico Romano's office building, Emma and Lucas holding her hand so tightly her fingers went numb. The marble floor stretched before them like a small ocean. Her borrowed suit felt paper-thin against the weight of what she was about to do. She had called his number. She had asked to see him. And he had said yes. The elevator climbed. Floor 15. 25. 37. The numbers above the doors ticked upward like a countdown to something she could not name. Emma pressed her small face against the glass. Lucas clutched the drawing he had made, colored pencil on white paper, all three of them holding hands under a sun that took up half the page. Their family. Whole. Safe. Because of a man they barely knew. The doors opened onto the penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Miami spreading below like a kingdom made of glass and steel and terrible, beautiful light. And Nico Romano stood silhouetted against it all, his dark suit absorbing the afternoon like a stone absorbs rain. Carlo and Nino stood flanking the far wall, but when Nico saw the children, his entire face transformed. His shoulders softened. His jaw unclenched. Something dangerous became something gentle. Carlo whispered to Nino, barely audible, "He is smiling." I have never seen him smile. Rowan moved forward, her children following. "These are my children," she said, her voice steady because she had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times since the judge ruled in her favor. "They wanted to thank the person who helped us." Emma stepped forward, her 7-year-old courage making her smaller, not larger. "Thank you for helping my mommy." Lucas held up the drawing with both hands, offering it like a sacred thing. "We made you this." Nico kneeled. This man who had ordered Preston Mercer's exposure across every news channel in Miami, who had orchestrated Margaret Harrington's destruction in a ballroom full of her own friends, who had built an empire on vengeance and cold calculation, he kneeled before two small children until his eyes were level with theirs. He took the drawing with careful hands, the kind of careful that suggested he was holding something that might break. His dark eyes moved across the colored pencil marks, the sun, the three stick figures holding hands. His voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "This is the most valuable thing anyone has ever given me." He stood and looked at Rowan. "How is the apartment?" "Construction starts next week," she said. "The insurance settlement covers everything. I found a new job at a restaurant where the owner actually follows labor laws. We are going to be okay." Her voice cracked like thin ice. "Because of you." Nico stepped back, his expression shifting, closing slightly. "You saved my son's life. I returned the favor. We are even." "We are not even." Rowan's hands trembled. "What you did for us, there is no repaying that. You gave me back my children. You gave me my life." Nico's dark eyes held hers, and something in his chest moved like a blade through water. "Then do not try to repay it. Just live the life you fought so hard to keep. Be the mother your children already know you are. That is enough." Emma and Lucas drifted toward the windows, drawn by the city below. Rowan stepped closer to Nico, close enough to see the scar running along his cheekbone, close enough to notice his hands were trembling too. "Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "What happened to the man who killed your father?" Nico's jaw tightened until she thought his teeth might crack. "Vincent Calabrese died in federal prison 8 years ago. I made sure he lost everything first. His organization. His money. His family's respect. Before the law took him, I wanted him to die knowing he was nothing. Did it help?" Rowan's voice was barely there. "The revenge." He was silent for so long the only sound was the hum of the city below, 27 stories down, traffic moving like blood through veins. "No," he finally said. "It did not bring my father back. But it meant I was not that powerless boy anymore. I understand that." Rowan moved an inch closer. "I know exactly what that feels like." Nico looked at her with something like wonder, and in that moment Carlo and Nino understood why he had chosen to help her. Not because of a debt. Because she saw him. Not the empire. Not the violence. The boy inside who had lost everything. Emma called out from the window, "Mommy, can we come back and visit?" Nico answered before Rowan could speak. "Yes. Anytime. Whenever you wish." As they left, stepping back into the elevator, Carlo approached him quietly. The doors were closing on Rowan and her children, on the small drawing now held in Nico's hands like a prayer. "Boss," Carlo said, "she is not part of this world." Nico watched the elevator doors seal shut. "I know. But you want her to be." Nico did not answer. But that night, he pinned the drawing to the wall in his private office, the only room in his entire empire where he kept something precious, the photograph of his father, taken when Nico was 4 years old and his father was still alive. For the first time in 23 years, Nico looked at that wall and saw not just the past burning, but the possibility of a future standing. The city lights moved across his face like fingers trying to absolve him of his sins. 6 months later, Rowan's apartment was complete. New walls. New floors. Emma and Lucas's bedroom filled with toys and their own beds, blankets they chose themselves, no borrowed linens, no borrowed lives. She tucked them in every night at 7 o'clock, her hand on their foreheads, her voice singing songs she had almost forgotten. She worked at the restaurant 5 days a week. Attended PTA meetings. Paid rent on time. Saved money for the first time in years. But twice a week, she brought dinner to a penthouse office where a dangerous man with soft eyes helped her daughter with mathematics and taught her son to play chess. Noah Romano, healthy now and 17, sat at that table sometimes, calling Rowan the woman who saved my life, treating Emma and Lucas like younger siblings he had just discovered. Nico watched her laugh at his dinner table, and something shifted inside him like tectonic plates moving beneath the earth. Power, he realized, was not just the ability to destroy enemies. It was also the capacity to protect the people who reminded you what you were fighting for. Preston Mercer sat in a federal cell, sentenced to 40 years, every single former friend testifying against him at trial. His voice, which had threatened and dismissed and stolen, would never be heard outside those walls again. Margaret Harrington lived in a modest condo paid for by her daughter, banned from every social club in Miami, her name whispered in disgust across the city she had once owned. The woman who had built her life on cruelty now understood what it felt like to have nothing. But Rowan Bennett stood in her rebuilt living room at sunset, watching Emma and Lucas play with the chess set Nico had given them, understanding something she did not know before: real strength is not found in never falling. Real strength is found in always standing back up. On her apartment balcony at dusk, Rowan and Nico sat in silence while the children slept inside. Miami spread below them, lights beginning to ignite one by one as darkness fell, the city breathing like something alive. Neither of them spoke, but both understood that they had saved each other in ways that could not be calculated in dollars or power or revenge. Only in quiet moments. Only in this. If this story moved your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember their own strength. Subscribe, because tomorrow brings a new story of justice, redemption, and the unexpected places we find hope. Drop a comment telling us, what would you have done in Rowan's position? Your story matters too. We wish you health and peace. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. Goodbye, and we will see you again in the next video.